right. Our third story, it's a big topic. And Madi and I, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, actually. So what started with a conversation about a lack of diversity. It ended in kind of like a big, messy Twitter battle. It was a mess. There's an article in the LA Times, and this is the headline. Emmys 2020 nominees are more diverse, but Latino representation still abysmal. And I'm pretty sure the headline was changed, and I've been trying to like double check that, but nevertheless, people were pinpointing one specific part of the article in particular, this line. The writer, Michael Ordona, wrote, "There have been no Latino performers among the lead and supporting nominees for comedy or drama series in the last 6 years, despite accounting for 18% of the population." So there was confusion and accusations of like ignoring an Afro-Latino actor, because everyone knows last year Jharrel Jerome won the Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Limited Series or Movie for When They See Us, and he's Dominican. So tagging onto this conversation, actor John Leguizamo tweeted the link to the article and a screenshot of the headline, and he added, "Why can't we Latinx have a piece of the pie? We are the largest ethnic group in America and missing as if we didn't exist." Orange is the New Black actress Salinas Leyva responded with, "Well, we should start with supporting each other and celebrating all our Latinx community. Many of us do not, and I repeat, do not support each other. Let's unite, make noise, demand change. Latinas in Hollywood, stop the BS and unite." Yeah, I said it. Then also another Orange is the New Black, which was a really great show, actress Dasha Polanco added to the conversation with, "If it's only us speaking up on it, no one cares. It's the silence from those that fight for equality, but only their equality. Diversity, but diverse enough to include thyself. That mentality of, as long as I'm good, I don't see a damn thing." So the thing is, and I think the story and part of what's important is that Latin American actors, actresses, even stories of all of the cultures don't exist to the level that they should at all under any different spotlight or magnifying glass. They're vastly underrepresented in Hollywood. And it seems that point got overshadowed. What do you think, Madi?
All right, so I have a ton of thoughts, obviously.
You're the only Afro-Latino person here, so it's like, I feel like half them.
No. I feel like Dasha Polanco was coming from a place of frustration, and I don't agree with her sentiments. So I want to say that, because I don't think that I think sometimes Latinos feel like our struggles, like because we don't get the support from mass media, we're alone. I feel like sometimes we feel like, okay, well, Black voices need to amplify our struggle, but often we don't do the same. And so I think that we need to first deal with that. So that's one thing. That's why I can't fully support what she's saying. However, what she's saying, not even just her, but what the article is saying, even though, yeah, they didn't acknowledge that, there was someone who received an Emmy last year. Latinos are really just ignored in America. They really are. And for being like one of the largest groups, the largest minority group in America, it's kind of like insane how we're not seen. And it's in conversations about everything. And it's because even with, we've spoken about this a lot, but even with issues of identity, like we don't even get to identify ourselves the way that we see ourselves. We are just like, so like, I feel like we're just kind of like, everything is okay, it's what we're saying here because we're in America now. And so it kind of shuts us up in a big way. But you don't see the representation in media. You don't see the representation in workplaces. You don't see the representation in movies or in shows. And so, yeah, I think, when you're talking about diversity, a lot of the diversity goes to the Black movement. And when I say the Black movement, it's not that it's not including Latinos, but because there are such issues of identity within the Latino population, I think identifying Latinos on their own, whether they're Black or white, I think that's where a lot of like the misconception comes, that there, seems to be some kind of representation where there isn't. Because if you're a Black person, a Black Latino, and you're mostly playing Black roles and you're not really showcasing your Latino side or your Latinidad, as they say, it's hard for Latinos to be like, oh my God, that's representation, because it doesn't feel like it. And I think that that's where Dasha is coming from, and you know, others are coming from. And every time that we do talk about our struggles, we're kind of like, oh, well, shut up. You guys are anti-Black, you're anti-this, you're anti, yes, we have a lot of issues, but that doesn't mean that we don't have our struggles. And I feel that. I see the conversations go on even on Twitter and like social medias, where it's kind of like, you guys have so many issues. You guys are so anti-Black, you're so this. You're talking about a group of people that have also dealt with, you know, colonization, that have had like a ton of struggles, that have been, you know, under oppression for centuries. So yeah, to sit here and just kind of dismiss all of the traumas that the Latino population has gone through just because you've experienced negative things or have heard negative things. Not even everybody's even, you know, experienced these things, but you see it flowing very fluidly through social media, like, well, the Latino population is just super anti-Black and they're super racist, and so we don't care. It's difficult. And a lot of times I don't think people realize that Latinos, there is a big part of the population that isn't even, you know, it's not legal. And so when you're talking about uniting and like, let's all come together, we're all coming at different struggles, right? So somebody who doesn't have like citizenship or isn't legal in the United States is not going to sit here and start protesting, okay? Because once they get arrested, they're getting so we're talking about completely different struggles. So when you know, I think that there's just so much compacted in that it's really difficult for me to say, oh my God, they're completely wrong, because I do think that we are largely ignored until it comes time for voting. Then all of a sudden everybody loves a Latino. But until then, what goes on? Nothing, right? We're one of the hardest hit with the COVID cases. We've been like, our communities are constantly getting hit with all these different things. You don't really hear about it as much as you hear about the Black community getting hit with COVID, or like the death rate being higher and all this stuff. And I see it because it's kind of like, well, you guys have Univision, so go listen to your news over there. They'll say it in the stats, but they don't really, you know, I don't feel like we're really talked about in a way that shows that America cares about us.
No, I think that was a good point. Go for it, Chris.
Oh, no. Go. I was just saying, I agree with you. I do feel like sometimes I personally don't see you guys. I'm just speaking for myself. I don't hear stories about you guys as often. I don't see you in the, you know, the Emmys. I don't know you guys' names by heart, where you guys have played multiple roles in movies, like leading roles, and I'm like, I don't know the person's name or whatever. And I appreciate you sharing what you shared, because it brings light to why I don't see you, you know. So I'm sorry you feel that way.
No, I mean,
I think separating Dasha's tweet out, we can dissect that in a bit, but there is still such an issue helping people understand that Black Latin American people are just as Latin American as their non-Black counterparts. And a big way in the middle of this conversation to help that is like representation. So we, you know, seeing more stories about that. We don't learn about that in school. We don't learn that Blackness doesn't just exist in Africa and the United States. We don't learn about the fact that Brazil has the largest Black population outside of Africa. It's actually not the US. We don't learn about, you know, the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and how like just based on logic, how like obviously there would be a lot of Black people Asians everywhere, right? Or Black Asian people, exactly. Black Jewish people, we talked about this the last episode. Everything is spoken about, and I think that also what's being pointed out is everybody, no one is exempt from internalized white supremacy, right? And in conversations, there's always such separation between cultures that intersect. We don't necessarily have to have conversations about, like, it's always weird to have conversations and say Black people and then Latino people, as if that the part of the reason that Latin Americans are the biggest minorities because that also includes a lot of Black Latin Americans. It's not, it's a big group of people that don't all come from the exact same place and look the exact same way. And we're not taught that in school. We are not shown that on television. We are, those stories aren't told. And I think, I think that's an important point. And I'll say it again, I do think that it is sad that got overshadowed by a whole bunch of other issues. The fact that, right, it's Twitter, but the fact that that is important. And I also, you said something, Madi, like, and I think one of the people said that in the tweet that, you know, we all have to get more focused on the fact that you don't have to wait for somebody to do something for you before you do something for somebody else. You don't have to, someone else achieve, and at the same time, someone else achieving something doesn't hurt you.
Right.
And we all, I think, need to work on that. Just that we should be freely speaking out for every different culture, identity, everybody, because that just helps progress.
I know, it's kind of a shame that I know Lin-Manuel had that movie in the Heights coming out this summer, and it's a shame that it didn't, because I feel like it's probably one of those movies that's like so needed, because it's about Latinos in the Heights. And I think that's the other thing too, right? Like, you see Latinos and you think like it's it looks the same across the country, but like if you're in California, like I have friends in Cali that they're like, we've never seen Black Latinos, because it's mostly you know, Mexican people, and they don't consider them Black. But like if you go to New York and you go up to like, you know, anywhere from Spanish Harlem all the way up to the Heights, to the Bronx, it's all Dominicans and Puerto Ricans. They are not considered like what, like for the most part, we're considered Black, you know, Black Latinos. And so it's a very different, you know, it's a very different canvas across the country. And I think that matters also, because the representation you see, right? So we've never really seen a movie like this, like, you know, to that scale, with somebody that talented, putting it out there, with people that like Latinos that look like us, really. Because a lot of times when you see Latinos on screen, they look like, you know, and then people think like, oh, Mexican Latinos are all white looking, but unfortunately it just so happens that it's the fair skinned ones that make it onto TV. But that's generally but you don't really see Latinos with the curly hair, or the Afro looking Latinos, dark skin look Latinos, you know, you don't see that on TV. And so it's a shame that they pushed the movie back, because I think, especially like the times that we're living now, that would have been kind of like a booster for us.
I think I'm glad we had this conversation. Yeah. I'm glad that
living in LA, I never see any Black Latinos. Like it's kind of a foreign concept to me. Like most of my my Latino friends, they say the same. Like they don't really see each other as the same. And for me, most, like, I never really, like, everybody I know that's Puerto Rican or Dominican is from the East Coast. Yeah, you never see anybody like that out here.
I think I was definitely still in like school the first time I heard David Ortiz speak. I'm from Oklahoma, so obviously, you know, and I just remember being like, what? Because he looks like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he doesn't sound like me. And the first time you're exposed to something like that shouldn't be a baseball player on TV. Thank God for him. But like, we should be educated about these things in school. We shouldn't be taught. Even we are terrible at teaching people about slavery, right? Terrible about it. And even at the poor education level that we are about it, we still are super uber focused on like West, you know, the West is the only thing that matters. We still don't even like, you know what I mean? Like, we can't get it right here, but we still almost act like there were, you know, only these many ships and they only came here.
Right. We don't learn about like what happened before. Yeah, so there's no movie that's like Slavery, the prequel, you know? We don't know anything that happened, but like this country only focuses on what happened here. And we don't even do that good enough. Right.
It's that's kind of part of the problem. But even with that, right? Like just to finish it out real quick, but I think that's kind of like been a personal issue for me, is that, you know, a lot of this I didn't learn until later on in life either, you know. And I'm first generation born, but I didn't learn about the transatlantic slave trade until college, right? So I didn't realize like we had such a proximity to Africa until that time. Of course, I never thought I was white, right? I grew up around white people, and I think that that's also another thing to understand, that you know, where you live and like where you grow up, the way you see race is relative to that, to your community. So I didn't grow up in an area where it was easy to
You guys need to travel to Tampa sometime. They're out here.
I know.
Yeah.
Florida,
but my first experience was in high school, and I was like, oh wow, like I go to how do you say it, like a majority Black based school, you know. I'm from Florida originally, so yeah, it's like super country, you know. And then I get here and I'm thinking that it's just like black and white, and then you realize at the age of 17, 18 that wow, these are Dominicans, Haitians, these are, you know, they're not what we consider African Americans,
right.
or you know what I mean.
Point is that
also even that phrase, it became, it was kind of like, okay, we're going to use this term African American because it's better than what we've been calling them, but it's not inclusive.
Right. That's what I was gonna. That was what I was trying to get to, is that I think that there's a misconception of what Blackness is in America. And so when it comes to Latinos identifying ourselves, like I've struggled, right? Because for a large portion of my life, I was told I was Black. And then another portion of my life, it was like, no, you're not Black. You know, we're not using that one drop rule. I saw it yesterday on Twitter. Somebody was saying
it's a lot of drops though. So
right, it's 10 drops.
Like,
it's half the drops.
Like, you know, the way that people police your identity and your race is so insane to me, right? So it's kind of like hard. Like I've seen the conversation come up a lot where it's like, you know, if you say you're Black, people tell you like, no, you're not really Black. And then if you say you're not Black, oh, Latinos are anti-Black, you don't, you know, you don't care about your roots. And it's like, okay, we have to really start to think a little bit deeper when we're policing people's identities, because until we really understand identity and race, which is super complicated, you can't really tell somebody what they are, you know?
And for sure.
That brings a lot of, that's just been like a personal journey for me, like just watching that. And for a long time, as I was older, I was really hesitant to say I was Black. And it wasn't because I didn't feel Black. It was like, because I've been told so many times, like, you're not Black. You're not fully Black. You can't say you're Black. You don't belong here. And it was like, whoa, it was so different from how I grew up, where it was like, I grew up with the Black community and it was like, well, you're one of us, right? So I was like, okay, you know, so it's weird. It's just one of those things that until you experience it and you really, you know, you kind of feel through all of that, it's hard to navigate.
We've got to all
what
do better.
I'm sorry. Yeah. What I don't understand is like there's history behind that place. All those islands and how everybody got there. Right. There's history, right? And nobody ever brings that up, and I don't understand why. Like there was a population of people on all of those islands before Black people got there, before white people got there. What happened to them? Nobody asked that. So and then it's like, okay.
Well, look at how we talk about what happened to the people here. Manifest Destiny.
Right.
All that weird
right.
stuff.
So, right. And like, that's part of the people they end up, well, not Americans, but they wiped those people out. Like, they either couldn't do the work or died from disease, or they just cleared them out to make space for themselves. But what was lost on me is why the Puerto Rican and Dominican populations and communities don't talk about that part of their history. Because I mean, even in Haiti and Dominican, like how
another podcast for that.
It's like, we don't have
just
time
confuses, like
today.
These are facts, bro.
Yeah, we could talk about that, like facts are facts. You know, a whole nother time, because I'm telling you, need a whole podcast just to get into the Dominican thing. It's crazy.
I have been encouraging parents that have decided to homeschool their children through COVID-19 to start looking into Black curriculums to decolonize the school curriculum. For the simple reason is that the same reasons that you guys are bringing up and topics that we don't know these things is because we weren't taught them, because schools were made in America. The whole point of them was to Americanize people, to take away culture, to regain a new culture so that you can be ready for the work field in America. They don't want you to learn anybody else's culture. They want you to be Americanized. And so you take a group of children and you basically colonize them and strip them away years and years and years and years, strip all their culture away. And that's how we got here. And so now I'm encouraging parents. I have a 8-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I've decided not to put them back into school for more than just COVID, because now I'm at a place where I'm in headlines and I'm not going to send my children to school for them to be treated, you know, in a crazy manner. Also, I want to teach them our history. I believe that we weren't taught enough. I believe that we don't know enough, and there's lots of Black curriculums out there. There's lots of ways to decolonize the school education. There's lots of ways for children to understand this before they're our age, before they're 18 and they move out to, you know, South Florida or whatever the case may be. They don't have to wait to be in college for this. That's up to us. That's up to you. That's up to, you know, everyone working together as a village to help educate the future of this country. And it starts with us. So if you notice a problem and you have the resources to do so, man, go ahead with your bad self then, because they don't teach them that. They don't. And so that's about to change with me. There's a lot of other people that are doing it as well. So yeah, look into it.
I think we need they need to make like a Netflix series called Slavery the Prequel, and show like the beginning of colonization and how everybody got to where they are, like just the history of colonization and how Europe swept through Africa. I think that would explain a lot to people. I think that would, I mean, it settled a lot for me when I fell down a rabbit hole on YouTube one day and I learned all about colonialism for months. And it explained so much, like what's going on in Africa, why the things are like they are. That's when I learned that most of the slave ships went to South America rather than America. Like, I had no clue. I thought, not that we were the only ones, but we were the main ones.
Everything we're taught is that we're the only thing, even, you know.
Right. And so I feel like, you know, if it's just a lot of people learn things through entertainment, right? Like a lot of what white people learned about slavery came from a movie. It didn't come from school, or it had to come from somewhere else. So I know through entertainment, a lot of people, it sparks at least, you know, some curiosity. So I've been feeling that if there was a series of like the beginning of colonization and where it went and how it affected, maybe like a long 20-part series. It has to be long because it's been a long time, but everything until Black people got to America. Because before Black people got to America, a lot of them they went to South America and the islands first before they even got here. And like that story needs to be told. The story of the islands needs to be told. The story of what happened to the Black people that got left behind or they didn't take. Because when I went to Ghana, there's a big long story about the people that didn't go or that wasn't taken, wasn't kidnapped. And like all of those stories needs to be told along with ours.
I agree.
I think it would really educate people, and a lot of people would, a lot of questions would be answered. A lot of fights could be settled, you know?
Yeah.
Completely
Black
agree.
History Month and public schools need to go a little bit further than same old oppression.
Right.
It does. We don't need to, that's so right. We don't need to only teach about the 5 African-American heroes that we are allowed to talk about in really like not factual ways.
Yeah, let's talk about brain surgery
Latinos
or
exactly. Yeah. Why aren't we talking about Black Asian people? Why aren't we talking about there's so much more? Yeah, I think that's a really good point.